So, when you hear the term Atma Bharat or self-reliant India, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, it sounds like building walls, kind of looking inward. But what if that's not the real story? What if the goal isn't to shut the world out, but actually to engage with it from a position of serious strength? Let's dive into the grand strategy that the sources say is really at play here.
Right, this is the big question on everyone's mind, isn't it? The fear that this whole thing is just a throwback to old school protectionism. And it's a valid concern, but as the source material lays out, the answer is a pretty clear and decisive no. In fact, the way this analysis frames it, self-reliance isn't the destination at all. It's the launch pad. The whole idea is to build up domestic muscle, not so you can isolate, but so you can integrate with the world on your own terms and become genuinely influential on the global stage. Okay, to really get our heads around this, the sources lay out a super clear framework, a grand strategy that unfolds in 3 distinct acts. This isn't just a random bunch of policies. It's a deliberate, step-by-step journey with an incredibly ambitious end goal. And here is that roadmap for our explainer. It all starts with building domestic muscle through something called intelligent import substitution. Then that foundation allows for the creation of strategic resilience, which is really the ability to weather any global storm. And all of this culminates in the final, pretty audacious goal, strategic indispensability. Let's break each of these down.
Okay, let's dive into Act 1 because honestly, this is where most of the confusion seems to come from. This is not about just randomly blocking imports. No, the strategy is way more sophisticated than that.
The key word here is intelligent. And for anyone who knows India's economic history, this is a universe away from the old license Raj era of just blanket protectionism. This is described as a targeted defensive move. It's about picking critical sectors, think electronics or pharmaceuticals, and building up domestic capacity in a way that is super disciplined, has a clear expiration date, and is totally linked to real performance. If a sector doesn't get globally competitive, it just doesn't fit the model.
So, once that foundation is in place, how does the strategy evolve? Well, that brings us to the second stage, building a strategic shield for the whole nation. Strategic resilience is all about getting ready for a pretty volatile world. I mean, think about it. A pandemic, a geopolitical conflict, a massive cyber attack. The goal here is to create buffers, to make sure that critical supply chains for things like energy, food, data, and health can keep running no matter what shocks are coming from the outside. It's basically about building an economic shock absorber.
Now, this is where things get really fascinating, because the journey ultimately pivots from a defensive posture to a distinctly offensive one. This is the end game. Strategic indispensability. That is the ultimate ambition. The goal is to move way beyond just being resilient and to become absolutely essential. The idea is to weave India's economy so deeply into global supply chains for critical goods and technologies that it becomes a node the world simply cannot do without. This is the big shift from being a rule taker in the global economy to becoming a rule shaper. And this is the power play, right? When other nations depend on you for critical parts or services, you gain what the sources call reverse leverage. And this isn't about military might. It's about influence that just comes naturally because your capabilities are vital to the whole global system. This table just lays out the evolution of the strategy perfectly. You can literally see the shift in focus right here, from just specific sectors to the entire system, and finally to embedding India into the globe itself. And the core assumption changes too, from just replacing imports to managing risk in a connected world, and finally to actively shaping that global connection. Okay, so a strategy this ambitious needs a seriously powerful engine. The crucial question is, how does India actually plan to make the leap from building defenses to becoming globally indispensable? According to the sources, this requires a fundamental change in how the government works. The answer lies in what's called an entrepreneurial state. Now, this isn't about more state-owned companies. Think of the state acting more like a mission-driven venture capitalist. It identifies huge opportunities, de-risks the early stages for private companies, and coordinates these massive, complex projects without getting paralyzed by the fear of failure. So, what does that actually look like in practice? Well, an entrepreneurial state has to take calculated risks, knowing that, hey, some bets just won't pay off. It needs to see reversible failures not as scandals, but as learning opportunities. It has to be able to break down those internal government silos to drive huge missions, like, say, building a domestic semiconductor industry from the ground up. And it has to deregulate, but intelligently, not by just walking away, but by shifting its focus from low-level policing to high-value strategic problem-solving.
And the main vehicle for this entrepreneurial state is crystal clear: high-tech manufacturing. Now, while services are obviously vital, the analysis argues that manufacturing is the only proven path to achieving long-term currency strength and the kind of deep resilience this whole grand strategy is built on. The goal is to get deeply embedded in these global value chains.
And look, this isn't just some theory on a piece of paper. To give you a sense of the scale, flagship policies like the production-linked incentive schemes, which were designed specifically for this, have already attracted over 2 lakh crore in investments. This is the strategy in action, happening right now.
So what does this all add up to? When you connect all these dots, it reveals a profound shift, not just in economic policy, but in the national mindset itself. This slide captures that transformation perfectly. The ambition is to move from a focus on managing poverty to one of building national power. It's a transition from simply seeking safety in a dangerous world to actively projecting influence. And the ultimate goal? To move from a state where you have to consciously think about buying Indian to a world where you buy Indian without thinking, just because it's the best option.
And this quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? This is the final benchmark of success for the entire strategy. When Indian products and services are just trusted by default on the world stage for their quality, their innovation, and their reliability. So this explainer has laid out India's ambitious blueprint, but it really leaves all of us with a much bigger question to think about. In an era of geopolitical rivalry and rapid technological change, what does it truly take for any nation to become a node that the rest of the world simply cannot bypass? That is the great strategic challenge of our time.